So, what factors drive the challenges that our state-owned enterprises in the energy sector face in maintaining operational and financial efficiency?
Basically, it's just a question that one, um, we have a very bad management system when it comes to our utilities, the state-owned utilities. And most importantly, we also are not investing in the necessary equipment. And I'll explain to you why. So, if you look at the power sector has three functional zones. It has the generation part that is made up of the state-owned generators like VRA and BUI. Then it has the independent power producers, that's the private sector. So they form the generation portion of the three functional zones. Then we have a transmission sector, which is the second functional zone that is managed by GridCo. So GridCo is in charge of the interconnected transmission systems of the country. And then we have the distributors that is made up of three different companies. That's the Electricity Company of Ghana, which is the largest. Then we have the Northern Electricity Distribution Company, that's NETCO, which is in charge of the operational area of the 5 regions in the north, some parts of Volta region, or now they call it OT, and then part of Ashanti and some areas in Brunei region. Then, so that's the NETCO. Then we have what we call the enclave power. The enclave power is made up of it's just basically they produce power to the free zones board. So basically, these are the 3 different distribution companies. So they are the functional zones. Now, if you look at the functional zones of Ghana, the power sector, the weakest link for us is the distribution, and in particular with ECG, because that's the point of discussion today. Now, ECG is unable to account for its power. For example, as we speak now, as far as we know, they have a loss that is made up of in the upwards of about 30 points, let's say 31%. Now, what it simply literally means is that if you give them 100 Ghana cedis worth of power, they can only account for, say, 69 Ghana cedis. That's how much they can account for. They lose about 31 Ghana cedis. Now, because of this, and usually if the generators, that's either the VRAs, the BUIs, or the independent power producers, when they generate the power, and then it's transmitted by GridCo to, for example, ECG. ECG first will have to sell to you and I, and all companies and households, collect the money, and then pay them. So pay the transmitters for transmitting the power, and pay the generators for generating the power. Unfortunately, ECG is not able to do that because, one, they have huge losses. But the other part of it is that because we also agreed that we were supposed, because ECG could not even account for the power. So even the small that you have, sold, the arrangement was made under what they call the cash waterfall mechanism, where they say, look, okay, if the 71 Ghana cedis that, or this 69 Ghana cedis that you have sold and got, put it in a common pot, and let's distribute it. So because people generated power, let's pay those people small. Let's pay the transmission people small. Let's even pay the fuel like Ghana Gas. Let's pay them small. Let's pay WAPCO that transmitted the power, the gas from Western region to Greater Accra. Let's pay all them small. Let's pay all those people small. And then you take part of it. Unfortunately, this cash waterfall mechanism is not operational for various reasons that is best known to the government. And so, over the period, they are unable to pay these players on the value chain. What is even more serious is that in this cash waterfall mechanism, they have 2 different tiers or 2 different categories. They have their tier A, or maybe the category A, which is made up of the independent power producers, and WAPCO, who transmits the gas from Western region to the Northern region. They are category A. What does that mean? It means that they will have to be paid first before they pay the state-owned enterprises. So, and the amount of money they're supposed to pay, for example, the independent power producers, they tell them that, look, even the amount of power we have bought from you and you invoice us, we're not able to pay all. So they have come into an agreement with the independent power producers saying that, look, even though collectively the amount of money we are supposed to collect from you every month is more than $47 million a month, just pay us $47 million, and the rest of the money, restructure it over a period of time in the future, then you can pay when things get better. Then WAPCO too, you have to pay them. So they pay these people this amount, the 47 million plus WAPCO. Then the rest of the money that is left, they use to pay the category B, that's the VRAs and the BUIs and the grid costs. Unfortunately, from what the PRC is telling us, if they look at, for example, $800 million, 800 million Ghana cedis that they received in June, and around 800 something in July. In July. If you look at these two things, let's take the June one, 800 million. If they are supposed to pay $47 million for the independent power producers, that gives you, with today's exchange rate, is about 752 million Ghana cedis. So if they take the 752 million Ghana cedis and pay it's left with just roughly around 48 million Ghana cedis. They cannot even pay for the transmission of the gas. That's one thing. So it means that they can't even take care of the category A players, not to talk of the category B. Now the category B, which is now creating the serious problems to the extent that BUI and then what's the name, Gridco and other things have to even go to the banks and do an overdraft to pay their workers. It's because even the amount that they will use in the category B usually is not going to be enough, because after they have paid the category A because of the losses they have. Then what they need to do is that government has, the arrangement is the government will also have to, on a monthly basis, make available around 200 to 300 million Ghana cedis to add to the reserve, the remainder of the category A, to pay the, the state-owned enterprises. Unfortunately, one, the category A, after paying the category A people, which is not even enough, there's no money to add to even the category B. Two, government also not pay. So you now have a situation where for a number of months now, people are generating power. They are paying workers. They are paying for fuel. They are paying for maintenance. And meanwhile, not even a city is being paid for them when they sell the power. They don't pay them. And so that is the situation they find themselves now in. That if you look at the current situation, the total amount of monthly basis that they are supposed to pay ECG, they can only raise roughly around 42% of the total bill that they have. And even with this 42%, they are unable to even commit to paying them. So that is why the SOEs, that's the state-owned enterprises within the energy sector, i.e. BUI, VRA, Gridco, are all suffering. And as we speak now, VRA is the only one that is managing. And the reason why they are able to manage is because, apart from ECG, they also export power to Burkina Faso, to Mali, and then to Benin, Togo, and then Cote d'Ivoire. So they get some foreign exchange. So that's what they are able to use to just stay afloat. But if you take the other companies, they simply do not have. For example, BUI does not get money from anywhere, but it's only ECG that is the off-taker. And ECG is not paying them. So that's the situation they find themselves in.
So what would be the ideal solution in resolving some of the issues that you have raised?
So first and foremost, the government of Ghana, under the NDC, said that, look, we needed to, because one of the major issues with the ECG and why they can account for the power is because they have obsolete equipment. That's the one aspect. And the second aspect is that they have human resource base that is not fit for purpose, particularly at the managerial level. So let's look at the technical aspect. In the technical aspect, the government of Ghana, through the Compact 2, that's a Millennium Challenge Corporation, came to an agreement with the government of the United States of America to give us free money to change our equipments within the ECG infrastructure setup, such that would have helped in improving their efficiency. Now, they were supposed to do that, and then two, now invite a private sector. And that's one of the recommendations the PRC is giving. The private sector. So they needed to leverage the private sector capital and private sector expertise in helping in reducing the losses. And therefore, money will be made available for all the players within the sector. You and I know that because of corruption, because of self-gain, because of because of the fact that they don't give a hoot about who is suffering. Corruption made United States, through the PDS issue, that money was supposed to get free of charge to help ECG perform well. That money was withdrawn by the United States of America. Now, government has to find the money to improve on the efficiency of ECG. That is why, for example, PURC is saying that, one, either list ECG on the stock exchange. We've done that before with GOIL. GOIL used to be, it was totally a state-owned enterprise. Now, government decided to clean the books of ECG, GOIL, and they listed them on the stock exchange. So now, as we speak, about 40-something% is owned by the private sector and about 50-something is owned by government. Because of that, good governance processes are followed. Good and transparent manners are done. The stakeholders ensure that there's investment in the area. And so GOIL is doing well. If you come to ECG, government, which is the sole shareholder of ECG and is a company, must make a very brutal decision. Now look, do we find a way of leveraging on private sector expertise and capital? How do we do it? Do we do it by selling shares through the stock exchange in a very transparent manner? Or do we say that, okay, all the amount that this ECG is owing, we will take it as government debt, and then we will increase our equity stake in ECG, and then clean up the books of ECG, and then the money that ECG should have been using in paying all this fine, government will take it, and ECG will use that money to invest on the equipment and the replace the obsolete equipment. These are some of the recommendations that.
But do you think government has the capacity to take on all of those debts at the moment?
If they have no capacity, to get off the office and let other people do it. That's the reason why you are voted into power. You are voted into power to solve problems. If you don't have capacity, what business do you have staying in that office? What business that the Kufuor have every day getting up morning to go to Flagstaff House? In fact, that man has outlived his usefulness. He needs to just walk out because the country is just collapsing everywhere, anywhere you turn. And in your intro, I heard you, Cocoa Board collapsed. The Cocoa Board used to be a place where on annual basis, we're guaranteed at least $2 billion from syndication of cocoa into the country. We had this to stabilize our currency. Now we cannot do that under this current government. You have a situation where all the state agencies are collapsing. Go to SIGA and look at the reports. They are collapsing. Look at ECG alone. At 2016, when ECG was posting profit, now as at 2022, their financials, they made a loss of 10 billion Ghana cedis. 10 billion of losses. That is the type of the country that we are in. Every part of the country is in a mess. So to ask me whether they have the capacity to do that, I don't know what answer to give. But they have no business staying in that office there.
Per your presentation, per your analysis, do you believe or do you support the call for the privatization of these state-owned enterprises?
No, you see, let's always not run away to talk about just privatization for the sake of privatization. Look, we under what we call the power sector reforms that was supported by the World Bank. We gradually tried introducing private sector into the situation. So one, we introduced in the upstream sector, that's when I use it as I'm talking the generation side. We said in addition to VRA and BUI, the private sector could also come into supply power, and that's how we have the independent power producers. We are saying that in the distribution end, we can have private sector also taking part. What we can do is to unbundle ECG and let private sector take part. But see, we cannot hand over all state enterprises to private sector. That is a national security challenge. Let me tell you why. Assuming that we didn't have VRA, assuming that we didn't have BUI, which are state-owned enterprises, and today the private people who have brought their money to put up the independent power producers, the generators they have like the Asoglis, the Aska, the Car Power, they decided they're not going to generate power because they think that they have a problem with the state, so they don't generate power. Do you know where are you going to get power? Because they are private people, they can decide that we won't generate power. And you have nothing to it is within their right to say they will generate. So as a matter of national security, you must have the state being able to have the capacity to also generate power. I don't know whether I'm making sense. Say that when they hold the state to ransom, you can do that. And besides that, you diversify your energy sources, both private sector and the public sector. So it is about making the public sector efficient And if the efficient is to leverage on some of the private sector capital and private sector expertise, we can do that. But we cannot, for the sake of my own, for the sake of just privatization, we get up and say we just give all state entities under the power sector to the private sector. Nobody does that. Even in the US, nobody does that. And so I think that, yes, we need to invite the private sector to come in with capital because the state alone cannot do it. Yes, we need to leverage on their expertise because the state may not necessarily have all the expertise. That being said, it is also important that government takes it as a sole and a sacred responsibility to ensure that they inject efficiency. And that is why in the NDC manifesto, we have indicated as part of our policy proposals that, look, we will realign and restructure both the operative and regulatory agencies under the energy sector to ensure transparency, accountability, and efficiency where necessary. And so it is part of our plan under the future John Mahama government to do that. And ECG definitely will be one of the institutions who will be taking a critical look at.
Some experts have suggested that we should depoliticize some of the state-owned enterprises, especially as we have politicized appointments in this country. So because of this, the president or any head of state is unable to crack the whip on leadership when they falter or when they are running their enterprises down. Do you agree on this?
Who has politicized? It's not Akufo-Addo. The challenge I have with you people, the media and the so-called civil society organization, you will see where the problem is and you start going around it. Look, the normal procedure is this. The normal procedure is that, of course, remember that the government of Ghana is a shareholder, for example, of ECG, the single shareholder. And it means that everybody who acts in ECG acts using the executive power of the president who has been elected by the people of Ghana. Now, the procedure is that normally the president appoints what he calls the board. The board then appoints the chief executive and give the chief executive KPIs, that's key performance indicators, that you need to meet XYZ as part of your contractual agreement with the board. And then you are then given that, and the chief executive then leads the management to be able to run that particular organization. If the chief executive is not meeting those particular KPIs, it is incumbent on the board to fire the chief executive based on the recommendations of the president. As we speak now, that is not done. The people they pack into the boards there are people who do not even have the expertise to understand how corporate governance is being done. There are people who do not have the slightest ideas as to how, the energy sector operates. You have people who cannot distinguish between a fluorescent tube and a normal bulb that we have in our rooms. People do not know even what LED bulbs are. And these are people who are sitting on the board of ECG, taking decisions and policy directions for the management to act on. That is where the problem is. So you remember that I indicated to you that it is a question of both technical and the human. The human aspect is because Nana Addo has decided to bastardize almost every aspect of our lives, from the judiciary to the executive. In fact, he's attempting to do that in parliament. So the man has destroyed the very fiber on which Ghana survives. He's the greatest nightmare we found ourselves in. And so when people say that, we should depoliticize this, just go straight and call the spade a spade. We all know where the problem is. We all do know. Look, let me ask you a question. Look, under what circumstance could you had a situation where Ghana Gas, you have appointed a board, you have appointed a chief executive, then the head of communication, that is supposed to be somebody who is supposed to be answerable to the chief executive, is appointed by Flagstaff House. So how does the chief executive control the head of communication when he does something wrong? Because his appointment letter comes from the same place where the chief executive's appointment letter is coming from. This is the level to which Akufo-Addo has bastardized our institutions. That even sometimes you have clerical assistants who are appointed on the basis of what type of card they hold, whether it is an NDC, CPP, or an MPP card. That is how bad it has become. And so let's be bold enough to do that. If we are not bold enough and we are going around these issues, my sister, two of us are suffering together. In the evening, you go to your house, me, I also go to my house. As to whether we boil stones for our children to eat, or we just boil water and give them hot water and put salt inside. It is we and our God. If we don't speak the truth, our people always have a proverb that says that if your mother is dead and you say he's not dead, in the evening when everybody's mother is cooking for him or her, and your mother cannot cook because he's dead, it be you and your mother. So if people are not bold enough to call the spade and say, oh, people are saying that we should depoliticize. Who has politicized it? It is Akufo-Addo. So let's deal with it. Let's call the spade and deal with that. And that is where the problem is.
Mr. Bauer, the ECG is on a loss reduction program where they are installing smart meters to improve energy accounting. The current strategy adopted by the ECG, is it something that a future NDC government would look at continuing?
But in the first place, the issue of, look, let me tell you, my sister, the NDC government in 2016 imported $80 million worth of smart meters into the country to replace obsolete meters in this country under a bogus so-called investigation. My sister, 7 to 8 years now. The container is seated in Tema with the smart meters there. 80 million Ghana cedis. My sister, just calculate the CD equivalent. 80 million Ghana cedis. That's over almost 2 billion. Almost 2 billion Ghana cedis. It is seated there under and it's wasting. That's taxpayers' money. And government of Ghana has paid for it. So in terms of introducing smart meters, is the way to go. But because of the fact that they also want to do procurement, they will leave what has been imported and is wasting at the port for 8 years. And they go to, again, buy other set of smart meters. How do you expect ECG to now have money to pay the players in the upstream sector? That's why the sector is bankrupt. So, my sister, yes, we will do such a thing because we already started it. But the truth of the matter is that this government, everything is about procurement. Everything is about what is my share in it. And everybody wants to make money. As I speak to you now, if you go to all the agencies, everybody is not doing, a scramble. You've done history before, a bit of history before in primary school, say secondary school. What is the scramble for Africa? This is not scramble for Ghana's resources last minute. 79 days more to elections. So is it 80 days to elections? Everybody's scrambling. Everybody's doing procurement. And of course, that will include even the smart meters. They may even just go, you'll be surprised that just on the last day before they leave office, they'll go and do some humongous type of procurement that you'll be shocked. So yes, we support the whole idea of introducing smart meter because then that will bring about a better power accounting. And so it's something that is good. But we had called earlier on that put boundary meters in various operational areas. So for example, if my area, Ajirangano and its environs, that you have a manager for that area, and then you put a boundary meter, you know the amount of power you brought to Ajirangano and its area. Now, at the end of the month, I expect the manager of that area to account for the power that was sold around the Ajirangano and its area using smart meters. And again, putting boundary meters. And we had said this thing. It was part of our strategy.
Honorable Bauer.
Yes.
Customers have complained that they are facing some challenges with these smart meters because they are paying more than they used to pay. Is this an issue that the committee would be inviting the MD of the Electricity Company of Ghana to come and answer on in Parliament?
Why do you want parliamentarians to be involved in this? Look, the issue of smart meters tells you that any small gadget you use, it will record it. That's what smart meters are for. So maybe you may have the old meters where when you go and you are charging your earpiece, it may not record it. Meanwhile, you are consuming power. What the ECG needed to have done was to do stakeholder consultation, and particularly the consumers whose meters were going to be changed, to explain to them, look, your current meters that you are using, it doesn't actually record all the power you use. Meanwhile, we need to be able to get all the power you use. You pay for it, and we'll serve you better by ensuring that there's always continuous supply and reliable supply of power. You need to let the people understand that. But you don't let the people understand. The person sitting inside, the next day he sees that you come and change his meter. And suddenly, if he was paying 10 cedis a month, he's not paying 12 cedis in a month. Meanwhile, it's the same amount of power he's been consuming. He will say that you are cheating him. So part of the problem of the ECG's implementation or the role or the deployment of this smart meter was that they did not consult the consumers who are the primary stakeholders in this area. And so you will have that disconnect. This is not the duty of the parliament to come and do. It is the negligence of the executive through ECG and for that matter the Ministry of Energy in consulting the consumers who are actually the reasons for which ECG exists anyway. And so they should have been consulted and they didn't do that. It is because they jumped ahead and started implementing, and they couldn't be bothered about the key stakeholder, which was the consumer or their clients. And so that's what they should be doing. It's not about Parliament getting them to, what is Parliament going to tell them?